The Philippine Expeditionary Forces to Korea was the Philippine Army contingent of the United Nations forces that fought in the Korean War. The unit arrived in Korea in August of 1950 and was composed initially of 1,468 troops, but would rise to a strength of 7,500 men, deploying to Korea from 1950 until after the war in 1955. The Filipinos were the fifth largest force under the United Nations command, operating alongside the United States 1st Cavalry Division, 3rd Infantry Division, 25th Infantry Division, and the 45th Infantry Division. The Filipinos had 5 battalions, being the 2nd, 10th, 14th, 19th, and 20th Battalion combat teams, consisting of infantry, artillery, and reconnaissance elements, and they arrived at the Pusan perimeter in 1950. The Filipinos would take part in the Battle of Myeodong, which was hailed as the first battle won by Filipino soldiers on foreign soil in their history, and that was in November of 1950. During the battle, 1st Sergeant Maximo Young and his men were ordered by the U.S. 3rd Infantry Division to secure an area known as the Singae, and the 1st Sergeant personally repulsed the advancing enemy North Korean forces by using a machine gun on top of a tank and avoided a costly loss of life among the Filipino ranks. Other notable battles which Filipino expeditionary troops took part in were Operation Tomahawk in March of 1951, Operation Ripper, aka the Fourth Battle of Seoul, which was also in March of 1951, the Battle of the Imjin River in April during the Chinese Spring Offensive, where to counter the Chinese attack and protect the British from being completely surrounded, the Philippine 10th Battalion was temporarily attached to the 29th Brigade, and a combined force of M24 tanks of the 10th Battalion and Centurions of the 8th Hussars, supported by infantry, reached a point of 2,000 yards from Hill 235 on April 24th. However, the column failed to make contact in their rescue mission as the lead tank was hit by PVA fire and knocked out, blocking the route to making any further advances against heavy resistance impossible. The Filipinos additionally participated in the Battle of Bloody Ridge from August to September and the Battle of Heartbreak Ridge from September to October of 1951. One major battle for the Filipino troops was the Battle of Yultong, which lasted from April 22nd to the 23rd of 1951, where 900 Filipino soldiers held off a force of 15,000 Chinese troops. 10th Battalion Commander Colonel Ojeda received orders to withdraw, and all units complied except for the Tank Company, commanded by Captain Coronado Yap, and he led a counterattack towards the hill to rescue any survivors and recover the dead men of B Company. Although Captain Yap lost his life in the attack, the Tank Company succeeded in their objective to recover a squad of survivors. The next day, the Filipinos launched a counterattack and reclaimed all of their lost territory. During the battle, 12 Filipinos were killed, 38 were wounded, and 6 were missing. Meanwhile, the Chinese suffered over 500 KIA and an unknown number of wounded, with 2 captured. Another major battle for the Philippine Expeditionary Force was the Battle of Hill Erie from March 21st to July 18th, 1952, where the American 179th Infantry Regiment and 20th Filipino Battalion fought against the Chinese. Across the months, the Filipinos conducted raids and led assaults on the Communists. On May 21st, a large-scale attack was launched by the UN, where U.S. jets pounded Chinese positions with napalm before the Filipinos engaged in close-quarters combat in the Chinese trenches, and suffered only 1 injury, while the PVA lost an estimated 1,100 dead, 2,540 wounded, and whether this was from supporting artillery, tanks, and airstrikes, or infantry could not be determined. The battle was the final assault on Hill Erie by UN forces. In June, the Chinese attempted to counterattack the hill with heavy artillery against the 19th Filipino Battalion. On the 18th, the PVA forces sought to recapture the area and launched an intense artillery and mortar barrage. The Filipinos held their ground and were able to repel the Chinese attack. On the 20th of June, the PVA launched another attack towards Hill Erie and the rest of the T-Bone Ridge area. At dawn, the Chinese had advanced sufficiently to engage in hand-to-hand fighting, but the Filipino troops were able to hold their positions. By morning, the artillery battle continued, but the UN forces successfully defended Hills Erie and 191. As a result of the battle, it was estimated that the PVA suffered 500 more casualties, while the Filipinos had 24 casualties. Total deaths of the battle were 8 Americans, 25 Filipinos, and over 1,600 Chinese. Notable personnel of the Philippine Expeditionary Force were Mariano Azurin of the 10th Battalion Commander, and there was Lieutenant Bonnie Serrano, who led a 5-man all-Filipino commando team on a winter night raid and swam across the freezing water to capture 77 North Korean soldiers and sympathizers who thought that they were surrounded by a much larger army. His attitudes earned him the reputation for being fearless and made him one of the most colorful Filipino soldiers in the Korean War. Fidel V. Ramos, who became the 12th president of the Philippines, also fought in the Korean War. Emilio Liwangyang, who was a naval officer, was sent to the 10th Battalion to extend his tour, and he joined the 20th Battalion, and of course Coronado Yep, who led the Filipino rescue mission at Yultong. The 10th Battalion served in South Korea from September of 1950 until September of 1951, fighting from Myeodong to Yultong. 20th Battalion fought in Korea from April 1951 to May of 1952. The 19th Battalion served from April 1952 to March of 1953. 14th Battalion was present in Korea from March 1953 to April of 1954. 2nd Battalion, meanwhile, served from April to May 1954 with combat experience in the anti-Huk campaign, and came to enact peacekeeping and reconstruction operations in Korea. A total of 112 Filipino soldiers were killed while serving in the Korean War. Did you know about the Filipino Expeditionary Forces in the Korean War before this video? Is there anything that I left out or should have talked more about? Let me know in the comments, and thank you for watching.